It's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Gabriela Pavarini. Gabriela is an NDPH Intermediate Fellow at the Ethox Center, focusing on adolescent mental health, arts-based approaches, and the ethics of new technologies in psychiatry. She brings together groups of adolescents, game designers, and third sector organizations to test and design digital tools to promote young people's civic engagement and well-being. The focus is on responsible innovation and integrating adolescents' values into the design of digital mental health innovations. So there's Gabriela's also her fellowship investigates the efficacy and ethical implications of a storytelling chatbot to support Brazilian adolescents. She's also co-investigator on the Attune project, which investigates adverse childhood experiences and the mental health of UK adolescents, and is involved in a lot of co-production and public engagement. And during the COVID-19 pandemic, she worked with UK adolescents research partners and the charity Youth Era to design and test an online peer support program, as well as co-leading the Lancet Young Leaders for Global Mental Health, with whom she organized a series of in-person and digital mental health festivals and events. And she's currently with collaborators at Yale, co-leading a youth leadership task force for the Early Childhood Peace Consortium. If you look on the shared program, a lot of these have links, so do click through. And all I can say is, wow, Gabriela, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Really delighted to be here today and meet all of you and share a bit about this work. So, as you're all aware of, over the past decade, we've been witnessing what has been called a digital mental health revolution. And there's been quite a bit of work around digital mental health tools. Oh, this is not working. Let me try this.
Just click into it and then it will, with the mouse, click on the presentation, sorry.
Yes, great. So, and artificial intelligence has been a sort of central part of the digital mental health revolution. And there's been, as you can see from this graph, an increasing number of papers looking into AI applied to mental health. And within that, one of the main applications of AI in mental health care has been healthcare or mental health care chatbots. So as you all know, there's been a number of startups over the past 10 years or so that have started looking into this space and gaining popularity. Some of them are startups, others are community-based initiatives. For example, there is a platform called Characterised, where anyone can go there and create a character. And that platform has about 500 therapy bots already. So one of them is called The Psychologist, and that has about 80 million interactions to date. So it's hugely popular. And we tend to think about chatbots and overall sort of digital mental health interventions as sort of standalone things that are sort of floating in space. And sometimes we forget that there is someone holding that smartphone, and that person might be, in all kinds of settings. They may be in a health setting supported by a practitioner. They might be in a war zone. They might be at home with a shared device. So there are all kinds of different contexts where people actually interact with technology. And the success of that intervention is going to be completely dependent on the context they're in, not only relational, but also political, social, economical, and all this. So unless we think about the context, we're not going to be able to think about ethics in a deeper way. So this is just a nice illustration of some of the ideas that I'll be discussing today is from a paper from Rodriguez that is great, I recommend. And it sort of talks about moving beyond the technology-centered type of design to focusing on the user, human, but more than that, equity-centered design, or thinking about values as you design those tools. So there's been a number of frameworks that have been developed over the past decades on how to implement values within design systems, and I just want to highlight two of them. So one is value-sensitive design, which sort of advocates for thinking very carefully about the values that are sort of embedded within technology and in your design process. And then a more recent framework is that of design justice, which advocates very much for leadership or co-leadership with marginalized populations and design processes that have a sort of explicit goal of fighting inequalities. So those are really interesting frameworks that sort of think beyond the bot or the chatbot. They go into context and they go into human values. And I've been very lucky to have the chance to co-design a chatbot myself in a fantastic team. And that chatbot is called Cadê o Cauê? That's Brazilian Portuguese for where is Cauê? So Cauê being a boy, a friend of yours, and you're basically looking for him. So that's just the poster we used for the chatbot, and that was possible thanks to a grant from the British Academy and fellowships from Population Health. And this bot is sort of unique in perhaps 3 different ways. One way is that it doesn't have the goal, as many mental health chatbots do, of enhancing the mental health of the user directly, sort of alleviating symptoms or, I don't know, increasing coping skills. It doesn't have that goal. Instead, it has the goal of preparing you to support your community, which is a bit of a different angle. So either by developing skills to support your peers more directly, or developing skills for you to sort of team up and take action collectively to support the mental health of your school or your community. And the second unique feature of this chatbot is that instead of being a more clinical conversation that you have with a robot, it is a storytelling tool. So as you enter the chatbot, you enter a story and you are one of the characters. So characters come and talk to you, and sort of the story unfolds as you are having this sort of automated chat. And then your choices can, of course, change the course of that narrative. And in this particular case, the story revolves around Cauê, who is your best friend who has disappeared in school. And you need to find him basically and understand what happened to him. And then in that process, you learn that he's been struggling with mental health, and you sort of discover yourself as an agent who is capable of helping Cauê, but also your peers and your community as a whole. So that's the sort of idea. And as you go through, you unlock skills, and it's a bit gamified. So it has that element. One potential caveat for this particular event is that it's not really based on machine learning. It is a sort of rule-based scripted chatbot where you choose alternatives. There was an actual design choice, because at the time we designed, we are not sure whether the sort of technology would be enough to offer a safe experience for young people if it was only machine learning. So that makes it potentially less relevant for this event. But I think the design of it and the recommendations that I'm gonna talk about, I think, are applicable to any type of technology design. Right, so I've learned a lot through the process of designing. It was a lot of it was new to me, and I derived 4 recommendations that I think are quite important to designing an ethical piece of technology or a chatbot. The first one is shared leadership. It is a great privilege to have a grant, for example, and one of the possibilities it gives you is to sort of share the power that you have in developing something with the community. And this, has been really important in this project. We had a team that was basically the leadership team for the design that included researchers across disciplines, but also included professional script writers who were from a company called Talk to You. They're specialized in storytelling chatbots, so that came very handy, of course. And then we had young people who were in the co-leadership of the project, and that was really fundamental. And sort of ensured that what we're doing was every step of the way, every decision was relevant for young people and their values. We also had, here is where it gets very complicated. In addition to these 3 sort of core teams, we had various advisor groups. So we had policy consultants, we had a school community committee, which had teachers, school psychologists, etc., to make sure that the bot could integrate into the school setting. We had a youth advisor group that had more sort of a national representation of young people in Brazil. And we had other creative and technology experts who supported sort of for example, production of the bot or audiovisual pieces, etc. So that was also essential to for this to come together. Of course, all these sort of complex web of networks creates a lot of complexity and makes for quite a challenging experience in many ways. And I think especially when it comes to the intergenerational element of it in a society, that makes so many assumptions about young people and their position, what they can do, they cannot do. So we've sort of reflected on the learnings from this through an ethnography, or autoethnography, and I invite you to take a look at the paper, and there are loads of lessons learned over there as well. Right, so the second key learning or recommendation is to understand the context in depth and the needs and priorities of your target audience. So when we started the design of this bot, Brazil was going through probably one of the darkest sort of times in its history, with thousands and thousands of people being just wiped off because of the COVID pandemic, a response that wasn't up to speed at all. And we're also facing many setbacks in the political, in the social arena with a far-right government. And there were also many setbacks, especially in the children's rights agenda in the country. So that's what pushed us to think about a bot that could not only help each person and their own mental health, but promote sort of solidarity relationships, community, and democratic values in the country and among young people. So it was very much sort of a response to the context. In addition to this, sort of for a year before we started designing, we did our own mapping research with young people in Brazil to sort of understand, do they even want to participate and help others, or are they not interested? What types of skills do they need? What are the barriers that they see in their environments? And we've published those. So that was quite a lot of background research even before the design started. And that sort of guided us to choose what skills to focus on, what stories to tell, I don't know, what characters we're going to portray. And it basically guided everything through in the design process. And the third recommendation is to make justice-sensitive decisions. And that's sort of on a daily basis, really. There are like millions of decisions you need to make as you're designing something like this. And you can just, make those decisions without much intention, or you can actually think about the values behind it. I'm just gonna give 2 examples, but I could give, many examples here of this type of thing. One is a chatbot is always a character, even when it's not storytelling, is always, some sort of character is talking to you. And we talked a lot about the sort of internal qualities of the chatbot, but I'm also interested in, what's the skin color of this chatbot? What sort of accent does it have? Or, what's their hair like? Where are they from? So we don't normally think about chatbots in that way, but it makes a huge difference in terms of people feeling represented. And we know from a lot of research that, you empathize better with people who are similar to you. So, potentially making decisions about what that chatbot looks like, what's their accent, etc. We are making a difference in the care that it's going to provide. So those were, explicit decisions we had to make. Who are we going to represent in this story? What are they going to look like? And we tried our best to get a diversity of young people in. Of course, you inevitably leave many out, but those were quite intentional decisions. We wanted to make sure that we sort of avoided stereotypes, and so we made quite a bit of an effort there to think through it. The other one has to do with access. You make through the process a million of decisions about, for example, how much budget am I going to put into optimizing this for the oldest mobile phone that exists? And that's what young people have in hands, many young people in different regions in Brazil. And it is quite a lot of effort to optimize for, what's not the latest. So, or are we going to choose high-end graphics, VR, or are we going to go with something that is more text-based? So just by that decision, you're excluding many % of the young people in the country. So those types of decisions were also quite important to us, and we thought about it quite carefully. And the last one is to test or user test in context. So many innovations in mental health and also just general health, they are tested in very controlled settings or lab settings. And that doesn't necessarily follow that it's gonna work in a real setting. And of course, schools, even home settings or clinics, they're very complex environments, and anything can happen when you bring, a robot into a care home or when you bring a chatbot into a school. And so this is really important. So we had, in our case, we designed thinking about schools as the main context where we wanted this to work. And that involved many decisions. For example, we wanted the story to take place in a school, so it would be more relevant to the school. One of the characters was a teacher that was an inspirational figure, sort of co-designed with a group of teachers. So we wanted to have that representation in there. What else did we, we tried to time the bot, the sort of duration of it to fit a lesson in school so that teachers could use it. So anyway, so there are many decisions. There was a guide for teachers, etc. Even then, even with all this effort, we still faced many challenges once it got into the schools for testing. So we had, for example, when all the students together started using it, the internet at the school sometimes wasn't enough to sort of support the, for them all to use. Or was in one of the schools, we brought a router to try and help, and then the students just shared the password of the internet and the whole school was using, and it crashed altogether. So it's very sort of complex, things that you can never predict in a million years that is going to happen. So we're trying now to make adjustments so it could fit better in the school environment, and then we'll test again. But it is an exercise of constantly going back and iterating and changing, and the schools are also changing. So it is quite a difficult exercise there, and really important. Then sort of designing everything in lab and then getting into the setting once it's ready to go. And interestingly, none of the challenges we faced in schools were experienced when we did a dissemination campaign on social media, which is a completely different setting. And there it was sort of much easier for young people to access and play online. So just to provide a comparison point. So yes, I hope I have convinced you to look outside of the chatbot and look into context, involve communities in a sort of meaningful way, and also make decisions that are justice-based. And I wanted to close just with a photograph of the closing meeting of the project that took quite a few hours to say goodbye. And it sort of ended as it should, with the young people, old people, all together on the same table. And I think that made me think that, we talk about the sort of relationship between human and bot, but maybe we need to also think about the relationships that make those bots, ethical bots, possible to happen, and concentrate on there for a little bit. Thank you so much.
Thank you.